Hello, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Suffice to say, if anything at all in the heliocentric universe could have possibly gone wrong tonight, it went ahead and did. So, we're just gonna talk here.
Why is it raining frogs outside?
I don't know. I'm waiting for the locusts, the scourges, and the flays. Hello, everyone. We're gonna be playing Skyrim in the background. Modded out so that basically ELRIC of Melniboné shall be coming to Skyrim today. And we are going to brainstorm a prospective ELRIC game. There have been many attempts at an ELRIC game before we start here. Just want to kind of lay out the history. Back in 1998, legendary British developer Psygnosis, I think it was actually the French branch of Psygnosis, went ahead and tried to make an ELRIC. I think it was just called ELRIC of Melniboné, and that would have been for PlayStation 1, and it was sort of inspired by Legacy of Kain. It was isometric. It was an RPG. It was very interesting. And there were screenshots and everything. They got pretty far on the game, but for whatever reason, it was shit canned. Apparently, scuttlebutt is Michael Moorcock didn't like what he saw, too. Although that wasn't the reason it was canceled. They had funding problems. Then there was another attempt a few years later by a company called Snowball Interactive, and like a Russian developer, and they called the game Stormbringer, and it looks, if you look, there are actually screenshots online, you can find this, it looked like Diablo. It just flat out fucking looked like Diablo, which you can imagine an ELRIC game in the style of Diablo. It would have been fucking badass, and that was a few years later. That would have been like 99, 2000. So there have been a few attempts. The character's a lot less obscure, I think, than Witcher fanboys tend to believe that he is. But especially in the age of the internet when information is free for all. But anyways, let's go ahead and tear into this. You can, I suppose, tell me if the footage is working. So we are modded the fuck out here on Skyrim. Might need to fuck with the settings a little. Oh, shit. Let's go here. That was what, Mistvale Keep? Okay. Is it working? Looks like it. Looks like it is. And Terangel, say hi to the folks.
Hi to the folks.
I knew he was gonna do that.
I'm an asshole. What?
We're playing the Skyrim Enhanced Edition, and it is doubly enhanced as I am the Dragon Emperor, ELRIC of Melniboné. There is a full Stormbringer mod, or there was. This is a long fucking story, but there was a full Stormbringer mod for the game. This French asshole made it, and he did a great job. It makes noises, as you'll see. It's powered just about right. It not only comes with the Stormbringer sword, it actually comes with the... where is it? Oh, it should be under apparel, probably. The Arctorios ring, the Dragon Emperor ring of Melniboné, actually. You can see it fully fleshed out there. Very cool mod. Everything makes the right noises, and, you know, it's pretty fucking cool. And Stormbringer looks pretty much exactly as it should.
Nice.
The runes throb, it whispers to you when you draw it out, and it growls when you try and put it away. And
nice, I like
it's
that.
Brilliant, and it has multiple soul gems inside the sword as well, which is really cool. So you like basically can swap out souls. You can store souls without really using soul gems. You can just use the sword. Very cool sword, and actually caused a bit of a stir when the mod was released. It's widely considered one of the better weapon mods. But then what happened was, I guess the guy who made it had some kind of disagreement in the Skyrim fanboy community, and
I think he told me about this.
Yeah.
He got butthurt or something?
he got butthurt, so he removed the link, and he's been going after anybody who puts the link up. As if he owns this. As if Like, I can understand Michael Moorcock doing this. He owns the damn thing. But this prick, all he did is, look, he did some very hard work, as I'm sure you can see. But, come on. Oh, I had never noticed there's a description here. Forged in the chaos to fight against the forces of entropy and linked to an evil entity. That's ELRIC. The destiny of the Dragonborn is to wield the black sword. It is his fate and his malediction. But anyways, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, let's talk about an ELRIC game. First off, I suppose we should probably talk about why you would want to make an ELRIC game. How the character has potential. And I would actually argue, up front, that ELRIC of Melniboné has more commercial potential than a lot of literary possibilities. Is anybody, by the way, are the volume levels okay? I just want to make sure.
As far as I can tell.
I turned it down to start with, so I think we're probably okay. Anyways, I think the reason why you would want to make an ELRIC game is because you are limited significantly less than most literary properties. Even if you're a fan of The Witcher, you know, The Witcher was limited a little bit in that you're the one character, and the one character is kind of well defined, so it's hard to really give a lot of narrative variation, and that's why I've argued in the past you're kind of just playing 31 flavors of jaded badass, right? That's sort of the way that game comes off. Oh, that's right, I got Frost.
Well, you see, the main reason I would want an ELRIC game is to rub it in the face of the people who made the fucking Witcher.
And that is worth doing, by the way. When I put out my video coming out here, so I wouldn't do it for those petty reasons. I would do it because the character's badass and he has a ton of commercial potential.
Oh, I'll be petty as fuck.
But I mean, oh, is that a bear? Is a bear attacking? Yeah. Oh, one hit.
Jesus.
It's powered the way Stormbringer should, by the way.
I remember Cutpurse trying to rob me on the road once.
Shut up.
When I drew Green Sever,
That's right, I'm collecting bear pelts for some random broad. That pulse-pounding RPG gameplay. And so, yeah, right off the bat, I think you got a ton of potential with the character. Mainly because, okay, think of it. You could have... Let's look at the map here for a moment on Skyrim. So you got the whole world of Skyrim at your fingertips, albeit significantly smaller than it probably should be. And that's cool. You could take that approach. For anyone out there who went ahead and took my recommendation and got the Stormbringer and the Ruby Throne graphic novels, they include a map on the inner jacket. You can actually see here. I've got it right in front of me. You got a really
pulling it out.
zip. You got a killer little distressed map. I would love for someone to release a poster of this, by the way. But you can see what I mean. There's several continents on the world of the Young Kingdoms, where, kind of like with Skyrim, where you have different areas. You know, Skyrim is just one area, and Tamriel is the overarching sort of region. The Young Kingdoms would be the exact same way, and the best part of it all is, right in the smack dab in the center of the map is Melniboné. So no matter which, there's 4 continents, I believe. There's the unnamed continent, there's the western continent, there's the northern continent, and there's the southern continent. And no matter which one you set the game in, you automatically have access to Melniboné because it's right smack dab in the center. And because Melniboné is an island, you automatically have maritime gameplay. You already have an ocean there. So you could have ships, you could have, which I think you would have to have. There's so much piracy and high seas duels and military campaigns. You really would have to have that. The other great thing, and I think what adds to the commercial potential of ELRIC of Melniboné, is you have access to the multiverse. So, unlike Elder Scrolls, where eventually, if the series goes on long enough, you're kind of going to have gone everywhere. Hell, technically you kind of already have because of Elder Scrolls Online. You know, eventually you're going to run out of places to go to. But with ELRIC, There's a multiverse. If you get tired of the world of the Young Kingdoms, he can just go to another world. And that world can be anything. It can be science fiction. It can be fantasy. There are modern ELRIC stories. There are modern ELRIC stories where one of the avatars of the Eternal Champion, Ulrich von Beck, is a Nazi during, like, just after World War II, and him and his daughter Un, who is technically the dream child of ELRIC, long story on that one, they are the guardians of the Holy Grail. And there's this whole brilliant, it's basically modern fantasy, and he's got his own sort of counterpart to Stormbringer. I forget what the name of it is. Raven something? Ravenbrand? I think that's the name of it. It's really, really cool. So you can do anything with this character. You can take him anywhere. You can do anything. No matter what kind of game you want to do, you can do it. Whereas other literary properties like, you know, Dragon Age, whatever, they're limited in that capacity. So right off the bat, I think let's just kill the idea that this is a niche character, this is a character that can't go anywhere. He's actually been pretty huge, especially in the 80s and the 70s. He's been massive. Hey, do you like that song, Am I Evil? That Metallica play at just about every goddamn show? Yeah, that's a cover of a Diamond Head song. And it's all about ELRIC. Holy shit. Fuck you.
Oh, that was a troll. I thought it was a werewolf or something.
Oh, yeah. I think I need to use some souls here, by the way.
Now, let's do a comparison. Now, that game, Conan Exiles, was recently released in early access. Mm-hmm. But you're not Conan. You're just in the world of Conan.
Yeah,
now,
I don't know why.
Would you ever pitch a game like that for ELRIC, being there in that world?
Oh, well, that's the other great thing about the world of ELRIC. I would add that it adds even more commercial potential because the story of ELRIC is not really the story of ELRIC. It's the story of one aspect of what's called the Eternal Champion, which is a character who has avatars in multiple worlds and multiple spheres of existence, who basically, the idea was Michael Moorcock decided early on, as he was reading a lot of fantasy stories, hey, you know, everyone's kind of writing the same character and just giving him a different name. So his idea was, why don't I just make it so that all my characters are basically the same person, but with minor differences, and they just exist in different planes of existence. And so, unwittingly, he created the concept of the multiverse in fantasy and sci-fi fiction, which, of course, DC and Marvel, if you've read any comics, you know that's a big deal. And they owe Michael Moorcock a pretty big debt there.
I see a lot of people saying Conan Exile is just Ark survival without the dinosaurs, but with penises.
What with penises? Are there dicks in it?
Oh yeah, you didn't know?
There would have to be dicks in an ELRIC game too. I think there would have to be dicks and boobies.
Oh, you didn't know?
There's just no way. But yeah, so right off the bat, you would have access to the other Eternal Champions. And that's what I would argue, too. Before we get into the idea of... Well, shoot, let's talk about what kind of game it would have to be.
I love the cold air. It's exhilarating.
Would it be adventure? Would it be
Perhaps it's
hack and
because of my
slash?
North
Would it be
blood, but there's
RPG? What would
something
your
about it
thoughts
that
be?
makes me feel alive.
Adventure seems too generic for something as deep as ELRIC.
Yeah, that's the problem. You have access to the world of the Young Kingdoms. That is a huge selling point for the Moorcock mythos. I think you have to maximize that as much as possible, no matter what game you make.
I would like... Obviously, there would have to be combat.
Yeah.
I would like... This could work two ways. It would have to have... It could be, like, isometric. Right? Something more along the lines of, like, Pillars of Eternity or Baldur's Gate. It could be like that, where you could have a nice party size. You could be up there. Could be a lot of story, or it would be a hack and slash role playing game, kind of like this. Obviously deeper.
Yeah.
You could go either way on it. I think. What are your thoughts?
I think you could almost do. I think the two big ones that I would suggest. The number one, and the thing I think they should do is they should do ELRIC as a full-blown open-world RPG.
Oh,
because
that's ambitious, though.
You want access to the world of the Young Kingdoms. I don't think you can go any other way. Well, we'll get to this next. but I want to talk about, because you say it's ambitious, but I say the ideal developer for this, I think, would be suited to do that kind of game. But yeah, so I would say it would have to be open world. I would argue you need access to the party, because you have the other characters in ELRIC that are so important. I know you haven't gotten that far in the ELRIC stories, but he eventually gets a companion named Moonglum, who's really good. He adds some humor to the series and some kind of sardonic wit. He's your classic rogue character. He'd be perfect for your stealth character. I would like an open world RPG in the style of like a Witcher 3 or an Elder Scrolls Skyrim, but with access to a Japanese RPG style party system. I would almost look at Final Fantasy 15, believe it or not.
Interesting.
For inspiration in that regard. Only you could play as the other characters a little bit. Think Dragon Age Inquisition, but in the open world of Skyrim. You would have access to multiple characters. The characters I would go with would be, you definitely need Moonglum in there. You definitely need Michelle, the Empress of the Dawn, because you need a sorceress. You also need someone to represent law. That's another great part of ELRIC, is that you can have a morality system, but it doesn't have to be binary black and white. It can be chaos, law, or the balance, because those are the three forces that are eternally warring in ELRIC. So you'd need someone in the party to represent law. You'd need someone in the party to represent chaos. Maybe you could have Gainer the Damned. People can look that up. That's a guy who is literally a disembodied suit of armor. He's so consumed by chaos that he's literally incorporeal now, and he exists only within that suit of armor. You could have him as a party member. He's kind of a villain, too.
That's a very good point, Texas Ranger 9. He asks, what kind of branches of magic are there in ELRIC? Is it just generic magic?
Oh.
Or is there lightning, fire, light?
I would
dark,
argue,
etc.?
okay, yeah. So ELRIC himself, I would argue, if you're going to go with that dovetails into the morality, you would have to do, the morality system would have to play into what magic you have access to. And it's not really morality, it's really more alignment. Law would have different magic than chaos. And the more you progress in one or the other, or in the balance, the more powerful your spells get in one regard or another. Think Knights of the Old Republic 2, you know, where you're more on the dark side, so now you've got access to more dark side spells. Holy shit, I'm about to get jungled by a bear and a wolf. Oh my god, that didn't kill. Yeah, Stormbringer also makes people run away in fear.
And you're chasing after a bear.
Fuck you. And there's some cool insta-kills with this, too. It just doesn't seem to want to do it right now.
Well, I mean, how many are there for bears?
Yeah, I know, right? But, yeah, I think you would have to progress. The more you progress on one side or another, the more you would have access to those, you know, so... And I think, I would argue, if you go more towards chaos, you should become more of a sorcerer in general. That's the thing about ELRIC, is he's really more of like a spell sword. He doesn't like magic, so he doesn't actually like explore it that much. He becomes more of like a worldly kind of mercenary figure as the stories go on. So if you go more towards chaos, chaos is the essence of magic. So you should become more powerful magically. Maybe if you go towards law, you're more of a combat guy. You're more of a...
Paladin.
Yeah, you're more of a paladin, you're more of a knight. And you have magic that can supplement, you know. That's what's great about this mod, by the way, is you can one-hand it, so you can still have access to spells, which ELRIC can... Generally, as the story goes on, he more or less can just cast a few elemental spells that are just more or less just runes here and there. Stop me if you've heard this one before. While he's good with the sword at the same time. And,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
John M. asks, what about a game similar to Jedi Academy?
Similar to Jedi Academy in what way?
I suppose combat, story.
I would argue that the way that the magic works should actually be similar to Jedi Knight, to all those Jedi Knight games, including Jedi Academy. The way you progress more in one morality or another, you have access to different magic, and if you progress in the other direction, you have access to less. And then, of course, there's the balance. The balance is a side in the world of ELRIC. Maybe if you choose the balance, actually, that would be a better idea. If you choose the balance, you're more of a combat guy. If you choose law, you have access to law spells. If you're more chaos, you have access to more chaos spells, which are more dramatic and evil-ish, you know, lightning and fucking incinerating people alive. There's some pretty crazy spells in ELRIC. Michela, there's a really cool spell in, if you read The Vanishing Tower. Michela, the Empress of the Dawn, is one of the reasons I want her to be a character. She has this great spell that starts off as her throwing, like, mist on the ground, or no, like powder, pink powder on the ground, in a circle around the enemies. There's a giant army of, like, fucking, you know, twisted warriors and shit.
All right, hand over your valuables.
Oh, this will not end well.
Like a fish. Yes, actually, you look like you're lousy.
Yeah, no shit.
I'm not going to ask.
Do you see this giant glowing sword?
Don't you walk away from me.
Oh! And those kind of kills would be in an ELRIC game, because that's another aspect of the ELRIC novels that's very important, and something The Witcher kind of ripped off. The gore is definitely a core aspect of ELRIC. There's a lot of, man, people die in nasty, gory, like, humiliating ways. There's at least one major enemy in the novels that ELRIC stabs right in the dick. Like, he stabs him right in the crotch and, like, splits him right down the middle, and, like, just horrible things happen to people. And, of course, I would love, when you kill people with Stormbringer, to actually see the life force, like, sap out of their body, like they slowly turn into just a husk or something. Because that's part of the Stormbringer myth, is, you know, it's not just that they're dying, they die with a horrified look on their faces as they feel their literal life essence and their soul being sucked out by this sword. That would also, by the way, to compound onto the original point we made about the commercial potential of ELRIC, the character, you already have used a lot of the, basically the game mechanics that are from the books, and they've already been in games that have been successful. The idea of a soul-stealing sword, if you've played any Elder Scrolls game since Oblivion, that already exists. The idea of a sword that saps the energy of your enemies and gives it to you, already been used. But you would have to add, with Stormbringer, you would really have to add a push-pull. There would have to be a little bit of a, you know, like, one of the things about Stormbringer is the more souls you feed it, eventually it gets sated, and it stops working as well. There's one battle, again, in The Vanishing Tower, where he's fighting this entire army, and he's just murdering people left and right. It's just him, and I don't even think Moonglum is really involved particularly. Like, Moonglum's just sitting back, or he's trying to protect Moonglum or something. And ELRIC's just murdering, hacking off limbs, slicing off heads, and Stormbringer eventually gets just full, basically, and stops working, and gets heavy in his hand. And then it's basically just ELRIC, this thin-blooded albino, who has, admittedly, really high combat prowess, and he's, you know, well-trained. Oh, shit. It's just him against this giant army. So that would be interesting. You would kind of have to measure, do I want to use Stormbringer in this situation, or do I want to use another sword? Do I want to use a different weapon? Because the more you use Stormbringer, there's an addictive relationship. It weakens you as you use it. It gets more powerful, but you get less powerful. So that would be an interesting concept to explore, and not really one that's been explored a lot in video games. You know, you have a lot of soul-stealing swords, but there's very few drawbacks.
Jester Smile asks, which developer would you pick to make said game?
Yeah, I was just about to get to that. Let's brainstorm that real quick. Who would you pick, personally, for an ELRIC?
First things first, the music is a bit loud.
Okay. Sorry, let me...
That's probably good.
Okay.
I would say if they had a really decent-sized budget, I would go with spiders.
You know, that's not a bad idea. That's really not, but I don't know if they could hit the scope.
Yeah.
The scope of a game like that. If ELRIC was going to be more of a hack and slash with RPG elements and kind of reserved to one specific area, yeah, I'd say give it to Spiders. That'd be fantastic. And I think, are they a German developer or are they French? I can't remember.
Oh god, I don't know.
Because in France, that's another reason why you would want to make an ELRIC game. ELRIC is, for as obscure as he's become here in the States, ELRIC is still pretty big in France and in Japan. So right off the bat, you'd have a character that appeals to two regions that are kind of falling... Well, France is still commercially viable in gaming. Japan is increasingly less viable. So anything you can do to reach the Japanese market is always going to be good. One of the reasons ELRIC's still popular in Japan, of course, is because Yoshitaka Amano kind of began his career illustrating the ELRIC novels, illustrating the ELRIC tabletop RPG.
Zetroff, real quick, adds, he votes for Quantic Dream. So.
Really?
Fuck you right away.
Well, you know, maybe they could, if they weren't making a fucking movie, you know, maybe. Quantic Dream is not a bad development. If you play fucking Omicron, they can make a good game on occasion. But no, I don't think so. My vote, and it's based on the fact that there are so many Easter eggs in their games, the fact that they have essentially woven a Stormbringer-like sword into their fiction already. It's abundantly clear that they love the ELRIC property already. To me, I think Bethesda is ideal, actually. I really do. I think they would be enthusiastic about making an ELRIC game. They're big enough that they could do it justice. It would be an interesting... They clearly want to explore the idea of a party, because they've been slowly incorporating party and companion mechanics into their games already. They clearly want more of a narrative-driven experience. Look at Fallout 4, that didn't end so well. But that's because it doesn't fit Fallout. The idea of the fucking dialogue wheel and the voiced protagonist and stuff. But that kind of stuff, I would argue, it works in an ELRIC game. I think that could work in an ELRIC game. It kind of is the exact kind of game that Bethesda are looking to move toward developing. At least it seems that way to me.
Jester Smile points out Spiders is a French video game developer.
Yeah, so Spiders could, yeah, you know what? And I think it would, if you wound up getting an ELRIC game off the ground, as much as I would like Bethesda to make one, if you got one off the ground, it would probably be a French developer that did it, because the character is still huge in France.
Oh. Twatterton says FromSoft. And if they could put aside Dark Souls for a minute...
You know what?
Maybe.
That would be really cool. They know how to incorporate RPG elements. They certainly are experienced at the enterprise of hack and slash. And there's a number of ELRIC fiction elements in a lot of the Souls games, actually. So yeah, no, that's not a bad choice at all. But I would still say Bethesda, based purely on the fact that, you know, they kind of already have a Stormbringer in their series. They've already, if you've ever played Oblivion and Morrowind, there's a quest called Umbra. And Umbra is sword and armor that kind of binds itself to the user, but there's kind of a parasitic relationship, and it's in both Oblivion and in Morrowind. Clear homage to ELRIC, and it was such a cool side quest and one of the most beloved side quests in Oblivion that they actually wound up writing it into the fiction. So that Umbra is actually kind of an important aspect if you read the Elder Scrolls novels. So yeah, I would argue I think Bethesda is the best way to go on that. They've clearly got a lot of ELRIC fans over there.
Someone suggested BioWare, but then Famous Mortimer says, BioWare doesn't deserve to make games.
You know, BioWare might not be bad too. If you look at Dragon Age Inquisition, All you would have to do is do a bit of tweaking to the actual gameplay, make it a little bit more swordplay, and widen the scope of the world a bit, and you could have a pretty solid basis for an Elric game. I do think so. So yeah, continuing on, and I was talking about party members. I think you would have to have someone from Law, someone from Chaos. It'd be cool to have maybe another Eternal Champion in there, or maybe that would be a later game, you know, as you progress or something. ELRIC would be a fantastic tank character. He's a great big knight, depending on which aspect he is. ELRIC is interesting. You know Dax in DS9, or
yes.
like the concept of the Trill, kind of cribbed from ELRIC. ELRIC is the only Eternal Champion who can remember all the previous avatars that he was. So he's kind of got the combined experience of all of them. So he's this old soul in this young body. And he's also interesting in that he was probably the first African fantasy protagonist. He was, you know, black guy, way ahead of the curve. Because that was I think that was the first story that Michael Moorcock wrote, actually, before Elric even was the Eternal Champion.
Corey Brady says, Razor, does Elric use any other weapons extensively prior to Stormbringer?
Yes.
So Stormbringer could remain as powerful as ever, but come in late game and not throw off the balance.
Yes. In fact, thank you for bringing that up. He has another sword that he wields. If you read the Ruby Throne and you read the Stormbringer graphic novels, he's wielding a different sword, and that's the Sword of Earl Albec. And it's a well-balanced, solid sword. There's you learn about the origin of Earl Albec in another story. I think it's at the beginning of Weird of the White Wolf. There's a little short story about Earl Albec going to Castle Canaloon and meeting basically Michella, Empress of the Dawn. Michella, Empress of the Dawn, is an interesting character because she is so devoted to law in the world of the Young Kingdoms. Literally the only reason there's any kind of formed mass in the world of the Young Kingdoms is because this woman essentially guides, somewhat manipulates even. She fucks pretty much every Eternal Champion. You know, she's like, so she'll give everything for the cause of law. So it would be a really interesting party member, actually, because she's a perfect example of why the world can't have too much law, and it can't have too much chaos. There has to be a in-between, because if you're too lawful, you almost go too far. And if you're too chaotic, then there's malformed nothingness and absolute anarchy. Let's go take these bear pelts back to what's-her-snatch. But yeah, he has the Sword of Earl Albec at the beginning, and there's a cool short story about Malador, Earl Albec, whatever you want to call him, going to the fortress of Canaloon, where Michella lives in this high tower overlooking nothingness. One of the brilliant aspects of the Young Kingdoms is, instead of invisible walls, folks, in an Elric game, there is a literal border to existence in the Elric stories, where beyond a certain point, the world does not exist. There's nothing but swirling, chaotic nothingness, and if you fall into it, you cease to exist.
So there's nothing beyond Thunderdome, is what you're saying.
And her castle was, at least at one time, Canaloon was overlooking this chaotic nothingness. And yes, the concept of there being an edge to the world and so forth was also stolen by The Witcher. It's one of the earliest Witcher stories.
Melfi Sky says, Razorfist, what voice actor would you want to be Elric? And someone has already suggested Hugo Weaving.
No, I would argue he should be the villain. Hugo Weaving would be fantastic. I would argue he should be like, if it's gonna be Hugo Weaving, he should be like Irkun or something. Like, you know. Because Elric needs to be young. The thing about Elric is he's very wise beyond his years because he uses the dream couches. For those who don't know, that's this experience whereby, and you could use this for leveling up, by the way. That'd be a cool game mechanic. The people, the reason they call Imrir, the capital of Melniboné, the Dreaming City, is because the people, they lay on the dreaming couches. They found a way to use dreams to experience previous lifetimes, to journey to distant worlds, to make pacts with the demons of chaos, with the lords of chaos, to even, you know, fraternize with them. You know, you can marry the daughters of, like, Ariak, the patron demon that Elric is bound to. Ariak offers him his daughters hand in marriage at one point. Like, so the Melnibonéans are thoroughly bound to the lords of chaos. But on the dream couches, you can experience lifetimes in 15 minutes. So it's kind of like this, it's almost a sci-fi concept, honestly. A lot of sci-fi has sort of swiped that idea. Whereby you can just be wise beyond your years. You can be experienced beyond your years. And that would be a good way to work in leveling up and stuff.
Someone also suggests Liam O'Brien.
Yeah, oh yeah, for Elric, I would say... You know who's a really good voice actor and has just about the right vocal tone? I don't know what his name is. If you, play as an elf? Oh, how did you pick voices in Inquisition, in Dragon Age Inquisition? There was a really good kind of British accented, voice actor in Dragon Age Inquisition. He has that perfect air of ponciness, but he has a little bit of grit to his voice. And whoever that guy was really good. I would say that would almost be the perfect Elric actor. Whoever the guy was that was the main protagonist's voice in Inquisition when you have the British accent as a male character. That guy was pretty much pitch perfect. So I would say that dude. Whoever the fuck that is.
Tom Hardy. I don't think so. I don't need Bane Elric, okay?
No, sir. I'm going to take your soul now. Where's my fucking what? What? Bring the 10. Where's the 10 bear pelts thing? Bear pelts! I'm going to the bear pits tomorrow. You wanna come with?
Famous Mortimer suggests Kiefer Sutherland, and I would say no. You'd have to hire the other guy first, then fire him, and then replace him with Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah, that's how you go.
No, you need a delicate voice. That's the thing. He has to have a British accent. Melniboné is a bit of an allegory for the British Empire. And so he has to have an English accent. Melnibonéans in general need an English accent. You can have any accent you want on the other kingdoms, because I don't think there's any. There is mentioned the Purple Towns, I believe, have kind of a Scottish brogue. They sound more Scottish. But everyone else is not really defined, so you kind of can cast whatever voice actor you want in those situations. But yeah, Elric needs a British accent, so it's got to be an English actor or someone who's good at doing an English accent, so not Troy Baker.
What about, what's his name? Benadryl Cucumber.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Whatever.
He would not do... He does have the perfect voice. He does, but he wouldn't do a video game.
Yeah, he's too big.
I don't see that happening.
What about David Tennant?
He's a little too... How do I explain his voice? He sounds like a... He's a little too ratty. You know what I mean? Like, he's like... Hey. There's like a sneering quality to his voice. It just wouldn't work.
Master.
But he absolutely is. It's fucking weird. And I like David Tennant. He's a great actor, but, you know, come on.
Garosaurus says, delicate. How about the Donald?
It'd be huge. Where's the... Okay, where's this? Where am I taking this? Calcelmo. No. Okay, well, it just decided that. I know.
Oliver Lant says, what about Simon Templeman, Logain from Dragon Age Origins?
He would be fucking perfect for Irkun. Fucking perfect. Or for Jagrin Learn, the Theocrat, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So...
One moment, folks. We'll be right back. No, not Simon Pegg.
yeah, let's... Okay.
Gilbert
What's up?
Gottfried.
The perfect delicacy for the last Emperor of Melniboné.
How about Michael Fassbender? Though he would never do it.
Again, yeah, it just... I don't see that happening.
Well, I don't know. He did Assassin's Creed.
Did he? Yeah, and that's the thing. If you go with Bethesda, you definitely have access to a lot more top shelf voice talent. You know, they had fucking... They had friggin' Patrick Stewart in their game, you know? That just...
I think that was his first video game voice acting.
No. Star Trek games, my friend.
That's right.
He was in all kinds of Star Trek games.
That's right.
I think he was in one of the Bridge Commanders, wasn't he?
Here for work? Get an
No,
axe
not
and bring
James
me all the
McAvey.
wood you can chop.
His voice is too soft.
You should probably be in bed. Nice to finally meet someone who can follow
Christopher
simple
Walken.
instructions. Here's your reward, as promised. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to work.
Hey, at least I get rid of those fucking...
Never
What is this?
traded my skills for
War
money.
Axe of Jinxes.
I've always adventured on my own terms.
Alright.
If you get a chance, kill a few more bears for me, will you?
Oh, she's
Look at
interested.
you wearing an... You're pleasant company. More than pleasant. And what about you?
That's another thing about Elric.
Be
Total
interested in
pussy
a life
magnet.
Together.
I think you played beautifully.
If you get a chance,
So long.
kill a few more bears for me, will
All
you?
right, Wilhelm.
Good to see you.
I suppose it's the least I can do for you.
But yeah, that would be... I think you would have to have... speaking of which, you would kind of have to have a romance mechanic, would you not?
Yeah.
Because he bangs so many different chicks over the course of the Elric series.
Now, why does that sound familiar?
To be fair, in the books, Geralt is not quite as much of a pussy hound, but he is still a pussy hound.
No, it sells games, though.
He bangs whores, he bangs more than just Yennefer in the books. It's hilarious. I had one Witcher fanboy try and argue with me on this, but I've read all of the Witcher books except for the last one to be translated. Is that Lady of the Lake, something like that? And he bangs quite a few chicks over the course of that series, actually.
Someone else suggests Clive Owen.
Oh yeah, he's done video games.
What about Christopher Lambert? If you could get him.
Yeah, I don't know. I do not know.
Is it absolutely necessary for you to bother me right now?
Just fine.
What a boring conversation. Perhaps
That's not a bad Elric voice.
Alex Jones for Stormbringer.
Bilderbergs when you try and sheathe them.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clement. That's too
It's the
kind.
Shadow People!
When you're finished here this
He
evening.
withdraws the sword and just shouts fucking 9/11 was an inside job!
Hail Hydra!
There's a fucking voice pack that's gonna happen.
Oh
Jet
my
fuel can't melt steel beams!
Tell me there's an
work,
Alex
get an axe and
Jones
bring me all
mud
the
crab
wood you can
mod for this game.
Turn
Tell
it!
me.
Cast fucking fire. Goddamn. Turning the frogs gay! There should be a spell to turn the frogs gay. I'm just saying that right now. This is something that needs to happen.
Oh, and of course, Stephen Russell.
Stephen Russell would be fantastic for Moonglum.
Okay.
He would also be fantastic if you have Corum in the game. Corum is one of the other Eternal Champions, so maybe you might not want to incorporate him until later. The other great thing about Elric, by the way, is that you don't have to adapt the stories. You can kind of tell his origin in flashback and just tell your own new story. Because there are huge chunks of time in the Elric stories that are unaccounted for. So, like, the only reason Michael Moorcock hasn't gone back and told those stories is he doesn't want to retread old ground. He doesn't want to just tell the same old Elric stories over and over again. So you have periods between Elric of Melniboné and Fortress of the Pearl that haven't been explored. You have periods between Fortress of the Pearl and Sailor on the Seas of Fate that haven't been explored, and on and on and on. Or you could adapt one of the books if you wanted. That would be a little more restrictive, though. So you could kind of do whatever you want with Elric, as long as you're respectful of the source material, which I think a developer like Bethesda, who clearly loves the character, probably would be. Let's do dragons. Yeah, why the fuck not?
That was another suggestion.
What's that?
For game type. Like Final Fantasy Tactics or maybe Fire Emblem.
Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. That's another thing about Elric is you kind of have... you have a lot of military campaigns and stuff. So the idea of you commanding armies in battle... Elric's a terrible commander, for the record. Like, every military incursion he tries to command winds up a goat fuck. But that's part of the character. He gets his shit pushed in quite frequently. But yeah, you could have, absolutely, commanding ships in battle, commanding ships on the high seas, maybe a little bit of an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag kind of an idea. What's this? Oh my. Okay. It's a giant's toe. But yeah, so I think you would do that, and yeah, I would say Stephen Russell as fucking Corum or as Moonglum. There's some great characters. I also like the character Sharilla in at the end of Weird of the White Wolf. She is... So there's a winged race. Another cool thing about Elric, the fantasy races are not your traditional elves, dwarves, and shit, although Melnibonéans are vaguely elvish. Instead of elves, you have, like, the Mirn, who have wings. You have the Oin, who are kind of like barbarian people. You have a bunch of different races. You have the Beast race that were apparently wiped out several thousand years ago or whatever. Lots of different races, but none of them are your traditional elves, dwarves, hobbits, whatever. Michael Moorcock puts an original spin even on the stuff that's familiar. That bear is bugging the fuck out. Whoa! He is gone! He is gone!
Gone, there gone.
Yeah, he is nowhere to be found. Holy shit.
Bronson as Elric.
No shit. So yeah, I would say that. As far as combat, what would you think for the combat system? I think you would have to have something a little more real time, a little more hack and slashy.
Well, somebody did just suggest Neo's gameplay, where it's kind of standoffish. You have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of with that same difficulty, high risk, high reward.
What would be cool is if that's how the gameplay was when you use traditional weapons, but when you use Stormbringer, suddenly it's like, oh shit, just got real. And you're just hacking arms off like they're made out of tissue paper, and you're chopping people's heads off and their legs. And
I would definitely throw in For Honor, maybe. For Honor's combat is very good.
I've seen a little bit of it, but yeah. Something along those lines I think would work. Maybe something a little like The Witcher's combat, but without all the shit. Maybe with a dodge that actually fucking works. You know?
Someone adds Bloodborne, but I would say no, that's a little too loose.
Yeah.
I would honestly want something a bit more defensive. Like Dark Souls, but I would say more like Neo or For Honor. I mean, where you have really great animations, but the combat isn't just like you're hacking at each other until somebody dies.
I would add, like, if it's more of an RPG, you would have more than just the traditional health, stamina, whatever, kind of, you know, magic, whatever. You would have more than just those meters. I think you would need, like, vitality, or, like, there would have to be, like, a vitality meter or something, because you're thin-blooded. You're ELRIC. You are not particularly... You don't have much of a constitution, let's just say.
Right.
So...
It would need all these different facets. I would say, like, parries, a high stance, a low stance, a medium stance. Like,
oh, I don't know about that. I don't know if you would... I mean, well...
It wouldn't have to be too complex. I'm just saying.
Yeah, ELRIC is well-trained. I mean...
I miss Rada.
Okay.
Rada! You saw Rada? Did you tell her Narfi cries? Did you tell her Narfi never said goodbye like mother and father? Oh no. No. Narfi never got to say goodbye. Now Narfi's all alone. At least Narfi has Rada's necklace. Reminds Narfi of his sister. Thank you for giving this to Narfi.
Okay. That is a badass sword. But yeah, I would argue you'd need, like, a vitality so that, you know, it would be a meter that... One of the cool things, like, about this mod, for example. If I get shot right now and I lose health, if I draw Stormbringer, my health goes back up. You know, so there's a parasitic relationship there. The sword itself actually gives you strength. So the more you use Stormbringer, you know, it helps your health. It makes you stronger. It makes you better in battle. The sword itself fights for you in a lot of ways. Like, if there are descriptions in the books of ELRIC as sword fighting with someone, and it feels like the sword is anticipating the enemy's movements and so forth.
Japan has the best games, says Shadow of Mordor combat. Well, that's just Assassin's Creed combat, I hate to tell you.
No, you know what? I would argue there are facets of Shadow of Mordor that I think you could and should incorporate into an ELRIC game. Like, the gore of that, I think, would be a good indicator of the sort of kills that you would need in an ELRIC game. You know, the decapitations and all that, you know, really hard, impactful, furious kind of stuff. And the pace of gameplay, too, would be very similar. The incorporation of various magic elements, very much in the style I would look for, personally.
Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty of this.
Yeah.
Soundtrack. It's metal. We know it's metal already. What kind of metal?
I think I would have, like, maybe the main theme be a metal thing. Look, ELRIC and metal are inextricably linked. They've been linked since Blue Oyster Cult and, you know, the song that Michael Moorcock co-wrote with Blue Oyster Cult. I would say it should even be, like, a 70s kind of rock song. Maybe you would even license the Blue Oyster Cult song or a Hawkwind song or something for, like, the main theme. But that doesn't mean it necessarily plays during the game. you know, that could be like more of a promotional song. Maybe it plays on the menu or something like that. The main score, I would go with more of like symphonic mixed with a bit of electronic synth, kind of brooding, atmospheric synth work for an hour, because you want it to feel different. You want it to not feel like Skyrim, to not feel anything like The Witcher. That's the main thing here, is you want to avoid comparisons to those by completely one-upping them. You'll have comparisons of, oh, they just ripped off The Witcher, but once you mention, oh, there's a party system, and you actually have characters that you can control. I would also argue there should be side quests for the characters, kind of like in Mass Effect 2 or 3, where, you know, eventually, if you have enough influence with your characters, suddenly they have a side quest for you to do. But instead of Elric doing it, I would like, for once in the frickin' history of gaming, to be able to actually control the character themselves, so they feel like they have a little bit of their own, like maybe Moonglum has an issue with a smuggler or a fellow thief, and he goes off and does a little side quest, and after that side quest is done, he has more abilities or whatever. And maybe because Moonglum is more of a rogue, maybe it's kind of a stealth side quest, you know, something like that. And you look, occasionally the side quests maybe will incorporate Elric or whatever, but it would be interesting to be able to do that. I would also argue you need a camp system. You need a way to camp, because that's the best way to kind of... I would almost take the camping system from Dragon Age Origins, how you can set up camp randomly, and in that context you can talk to all of your party members, you can... there are shops there, whatever. Not quite to that extent, but I would take that, mix it with Final Fantasy XV's camping system, and kind of get the best of both worlds. And that would be where you learn about the side quests that your characters have. Maybe there would be cutscenes there where your characters actually interact with each other. Maybe Moonglum has a disagreement with Michella, or he's hitting on Michella and she's having none of it, or, you know, something like that. I think it would be really cool. But yeah, that's what I would like. I would like a side quest that the other characters actually go on themselves, so the entire world doesn't feel like it just revolves around Elric, because it doesn't. That's one of the cool things about Moorcock's fiction, is it's so realistic in the fact that, you
If you
know,
ask me, this damn
the world
rebellion
continues
can't
to
end soon
revolve
enough.
with or without you.
I had to end my...
Meals are served to bards at designated
Shut up.
times. Find an inn if you want to make requests.
Welcome to the Bard's College. I'm the headmaster.
Hey,
How
Stephen
may I-
Russell.
May song speed you along.
That would be another cool character to put in there, by the way. Weldrake, the Bard. I know. Pale albino guy traveling in the company of a bard. I don't know where I've heard that before, but...
What part would Ariok play? Like, how omnipresent would he be? Like, would he be...
There would be summoning in this game. That would be an aspect of the combat that I would implement. I would take that a little bit from Final Fantasy. Because the thing about Elric is he's not that great with his actual magic, but he's pretty good at summoning. He's pretty good at, he can summon Strasha. Let's say you're having a fight on the beach, and your whole party is all spread out, and you've got Stormbringer drawn, and you're just having a little bit of difficulty. Maybe it's some kind of golem or something. And your party's spread out, you're kind of moving them around, and you're doing your thing. I would like to be able to switch between party members on the fly, by the way. That would be pretty cool. And so you're fighting on the beach, and you realize, holy shit, I'm near the beach. And so Elric begins to summon, which means as you control the other characters, they're guarding Elric while he's doing the runes, while he's saying the runes out loud and so forth in the old Melnibonéan tongue. And then all of a sudden, Strasha, the Sea King, these giant tentacles raise out of the fucking water and just grab this enemy and fucking twist his head off and pull him down into the sea. You know, because the Strasha and Grom is the earth god in Elric, and Strasha is the sea god. They have this eternal war. So say you're fighting like a golem on land, you could conjure Strasha to take out, and that would kind of be the weakness of the thralls of the rock god. And the same thing might happen if you're swimming in the ocean and you get attacked by sea creatures or something. You know, summon lightning or whatever the fuck, you know, might be their weakness. But yeah, I think there would have to be summoning, and I would incorporate Ariok in that. It would also be if you become, let's say if you become more allied with Chaos, you could even go so far as to summon Ariok during massive boss battles or something, where he could just wipe out a bitch and it'd take most of their HP or something.
See, I would take it the other way. I would have him be like, not the level up guy, but it's like, maybe you learn spells from him, or he gives you quests, or stuff like that, where he's just like, he's almost always there watching you.
Well, yeah, he would definitely be that kind of figure anyway. You would definitely have...
Aiden is my star pupil. None of the others can hold a candle.
He would be this character that pops up randomly, and when he shows up, you're not necessarily enthused about it. Because he's just fucking with you. I mean, Ariok says, you know, to Elric repeatedly, he calls him the most beautiful of all his slaves. You know, it's again, much like with Stormbringer, it's a parasitic relationship. And depending on what point in the story you decide to set it, Ariok would be treacherous too. You might try and summon him in the middle of battle and he just doesn't answer your call because you're not allied with Chaos enough, or because it doesn't suit his ends or something. It'd add a nice bit of randomness to the game. It would add some challenge and it would add a little more flavor. And that should happen, I would argue, maybe with all of the gods. You know, maybe if you've been summoning Strasha too much, he wouldn't show up. Or if you're in the wrong location, maybe he just couldn't because he's nowhere near the ocean. You know, it goes on and on like that. You could definitely explore that in a number of different ways.
Several people have been asking, what are your thoughts on Berserk? Have you read it?
Yeah, I love Berserk. End of story. No. Let's do a quest here.
Best Way Killa says, so Ariok would be like a high-level Pokemon that won't obey.
You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. A lot of times he would just be like, fuck you. Let's see, what else? You would definitely need alchemy. Alchemy and crafting would have to be a part of it because of the, you know, Elric's thin blood needing to use potions to sustain him. That's another thing. If you don't use Stormbringer, that's going to be a downside as well. Because Elric has thin blood, he needs something to supplement his strength. So you're going to have to invest in, like, alchemy, or you're going to have to be able to make the potions and the drugs and the mutagens and so forth that sustain him and keep him strong. I think that would be kind of cool. This is a cool little side quest. Ow.
Ellie, my dear. Oh, I couldn't. Goes right through me. Besides, I have so many things to do. So many undesirables to continue.
Stephen fucking Russell.
Buffoons.
He would have to be in an Elric. He would just have to be.
Yeah.
He would be the perfect Moonglum, just so perfect.
You are far too hard on yourself.
Have him do like a little Irish accent and just kind of be the roguish ne'er-do-well guy who's hitting on all the chicks in your party and getting turned down. And he's all about just getting money and fucking bitches.
Septum that's ever ruled. Well, except for that Martin fella. But he turned into a dragon god.
Ah, Sheogorath.
You know, I was there for that whole sordid affair.
No, I forget. Remind me again.
It's
blood,
implied
fox,
that
a severed
this is the
head,
protagonist of Oblivion.
and the cheese.
Really?
Did you ever play the Shivering Isles?
I thought.
Yes, yes.
It's
as
widely
you've said
believed that the
countless times
protagonist of
before.
Oblivion became Sheogora.
Harumph.
So he's not a
If you're
Daedric
going to
prince.
be like that,
Well,
perhaps
yes,
it's
but
best
you
not
can
take my
depose
leave.
him.
A good day to you, sir. I said good day.
Yes, yes, go. Leave
That's why
me
he
to
looks
my
slightly
ceaseless
different.
responsibilities and burdens.
Ugh.
How rude.
You guys were mentioning, by the way, before, speaking of that portal that took that guy away, you guys were mentioning before the stream, you know, would you be able to travel across the multiverse, or would Elric be able to? I don't know. I would argue that would probably be better suited for a game where you just want to change the setting, where you just don't want to be in the Young Kingdoms for whatever reason. That's the great thing about this. If you just want to make a new fantasy world that has nothing to do with Elric, then at the beginning of the game, you just have Elric be swallowed into another dimension, and boom, you're gold. You can do whatever you want.
Crossovers.
Yeah, as long as you respect the lore and don't spit in its face, and you kind of tell a story that matters, you know. That would have to be bound into the game, by the way. If you don't have the law versus chaos versus balance core narrative, it's not Elric. It just won't work. You have to have that in there.
Elric versus Capcom.
Father to host, an old friend for a decade or two. Really? Oh, what kind of message? A song? A summons? Wait, I know. A death threat written on the back of an Argonian concubine. Those are my favorites. Well, spit it out, mortal. I haven't got an eternity. Actually, I do. Little joke. But seriously, what's the message? Oh, no mistake at all. What you made
Is he eating an elephant trunk?
Granted, not a very wise choice, but these things happened. Oh, the folly of youth. You know, you remind me of myself at a young age. All I cared about was riding narwhals and sleeping in honeycombs and drinking babies' tears.
Isn't this voice actor, isn't he like a DJ in the Maryland area?
Mind the pointy end. But there I go. Waxing poetic about my misspent youth. Now, where were we? Yes, you're the mortal messenger. And I am? Honestly, have you any idea?
You're a madman. Yeah, that's about what I
Pardon me.
expected.
Were you saying something? I do apologize. It's just that I find myself suddenly and irrevocably bored. I mean, really, here you stand before Sheogorath himself, Daedric Prince of Madness, and all you deem fit to do is deliver a message? How sad. Now that's the real question, isn't it? Because honestly, how much time off could a demented Daedra
Guy sounds
really
like he's
need?
one of the Northwind Highlanders.
So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave. That's right. I'm done. Holiday complete. Time to return to the humdrum day-to-day. On one condition. You have to find the way out first. Well, good luck with that. Is it? Care to take a look around? This is not, I dare say, the Solitude Botanical Gardens. Have you any idea where you are? Where you truly are? Welcome to the deceptively verdant mind of the Emperor Pelagius III. That's right! You're in the head of a dead, homicidally insane monarch! Now, I know what you're thinking. Can I still rely on my swords and spells and sneaking and all that nonsense? Sure. Or you could use
Do you mind? I'm
Yup!
busy with a fish stick. It's a very delicate state of mind.
Oh boy. Oh dear.
Melfi Sky asks a very good question. What monsters should be in the actual game? What would you like to see?
I'm sorry, what?
What monsters should be in the game? What enemies?
I think you would need... There's any number of monsters in the world of ELRIC, which is really cool. Like, chaos magic creates and warps the human body in crazy ways. Like, it's hard to explain until you get to the later books in the series. But, you know, you'll have, like, a lion with a fucking panther's head and a rhino's ass, and, like, you'll just... They begin to distort biology to a crazy extent. So you could do some really cool monsters. You could literally come up with virtually anything and have it be a monster in an ELRIC game. There are some cool specific monsters that he winds up fighting. You can maybe fight the Sad Giant, or I know there's a race of giants in ELRIC, so you could automatically have that. There's mentioned a whole bunch of sea creatures. There's a particular, oh god, there's the Elenoin, which are like, they take the form of a fully nude, like, green-skinned woman with long hair covering, you know, every available inch of their body. And they're just horrific assassins. And the only thing that can kill them is this, like, male race of, like, ape-like troglodytes. I forget what they're called, but I remember the Elenoin. They're from... I think this is from Bane of the Black Sword, if I remember. But there's this implication that they both used to be part of the same race, but they evolved in different directions. And they're both, like, kind of creatures of chaos, and you can sort of summon them. And that's what happens at one point in the game. There's a lot of cool monsters in ELRIC, actually. Some of them come off as a little random, but he does happen upon some really cool stuff. I also like the idea of, if you have access to Michelle, Princess of the Dawn, or Empress of the Dawn, she has access to this cool clockwork bronze, or is it silver? I can't remember. I think it's like bronze-colored, kind of clockwork bird that ELRIC occasionally flies around on, and so does Michelle occasionally. So you'd have access to unique mounts and stuff. There are different animals that the enemies ride instead of just plain horses and shit. There's just, you know, so much potential in terms of the actual bestiary of the ELRIC series.
You've headed down the path of dreams. Unfortunately for you, Pelagius suffered night terrors from a young age.
Oh, Invisible Walls was a shitty
All
show
you need to
hosted by
do
Jeff.
is find something to wake our poor Pelagius up. You'll find his terrors easy to repel, but persistent.
Hey, I leveled up. And I can't level up.
Are you completely locked out of your menu?
Yes. What the? No? Come on. Come on. I forget what you have to do here. It's been a long time.
Did you pickpocket him?
I'll try. No.
Sleep next to him.
You know what? No. Alright. Catching butterflies, as you do. You can't really trigger.
Well, you defended him. Maybe you should just leave.
I don't know. No fucking idea. I cannot remember what I'm supposed to do here. God, it's been so long.
People are saying keep using it on him.
Ah, okay. Ooh.
You picked a bad time to get lost in the Die already so I can take your stuff!
Hey, stop missing.
Yes?
What's up,
Yes?
nigga?
Yes?
Ooh, not so much. Okay, you missed. Cast it on the bed. Whoa! Another cool thing about ELRIC is there a lot of the supernatural creatures and stuff. ELRIC was one of the first fantasy series to really get into, like, okay, there's vampires and there's werewolves and stuff in this world. But the way that those vampires and werewolves work is a little different, which is cool.
Someone there?
Like in, I'm reading Revenge of the Rose right now, which is a really good
Need something?
ELRIC story. Yeah, come on.
Need something?
I need you to wake the fuck up.
Need something?
Hey!
Should have come here.
Oh! Oh! Okay. Oh my. That's suboptimal. That could have gone better. Alright. Okay. Oh, and then I'd have to go through that again? Fuck that noise. Fuck that noise.
Well, it seemed a bit long anyway.
Yes. Do I have enough money to actually buy a house here yet?
Do you have business with the court?
No, I'm a poor asshole. 10,000. Fucking Skyrim hipster
Jarl
beards.
is not to be disturbed with common affairs at court. You direct those concerns to me. I won't forget what you've done for Solomon.
Huh.
My duty is to keep the Jarl safe, not play nursemaid to you sycophants.
That's another cool thing. If you're... In terms of side quests, you have kind of... If you made an ELRIC game, you would kind of have an evergreen wellspring of side quests because of how many short stories exist. A good example of what I'm talking about is, like, if you read Tales of the White Wolf, which is this book where Michael Moorcock let other people write ELRIC stories, and he actually wrote a brand new ELRIC short story kind of novella at the very beginning of the book, and then everything else is like Tad Williams writes one, Neil Gaiman writes one, there's a bunch of different ELRIC stories, and they call it Tales of the White Wolf, and all it is a bunch of short stories, and then there's a bunch of short stories, and also because the stories were originally published in pulps, they all kind of have their own self-contained stories and whatever, and you could convert those easily into just nice, elaborate side quests. That would work for ELRIC specifically.
I mostly deal with petty thievery and trouble.
Let's sell some shit.
Stay out of trouble, elf.
Sell some of our thin blood. Pay the light bill.
I bet my papa could beat you up.
Fuck you. Actually, that's probably true if I'm ELRIC. Hey, what's up?
Good morning.
I remember a cut person neighbors trying to rub me on the road once.
A bit of this and a bit of that.
1987, I think the poor man soiled his armor.
Manic Moors asks, would the morality system affect the outcome of an ELRIC game?
I think it would have to. It would have to. If you ally yourself with the Lords of Chaos, there would be a completely different outcome. Because you have to understand, like, the Melnibonéan race is allied with Chaos. ELRIC is unique only in that he rebels against that. He believes that they have something to learn from the Young Kingdoms, and that's why he strikes out into the world, so that he can figure out what the fuck is going on in the wide world and whether or not they actually have something to teach his people. Fucking rid of that. So yeah, I think if you were allied with Chaos, there's no way you could not have that affect how the story ends. But regardless, it's got to end the same way. You know, and again, this kind of depends on when you set the story. You know, if you decide to tell the story of ELRIC and actually adapt the stories in terms of actual continuity, you know, one of the novels, then we know how that beginning, middle, and end is supposed to play out. But if you just decide to do a story set in between two novels, you can have it end pretty much any way you want, as long as he doesn't bite it. Let's see here.
Monotone Gaming asks, I want to learn more about ELRIC. Where would I start, even finding the books?
I actually, if you watch my video on Enter ELRIC of Melniboné, if you open the description, I included a link to a blog post where I've got sort of a reading order for the books. And with the graphic novels attached, I would argue you should start with the graphic novels. They're nice and accessible. They're pretty cheap. The French comics specifically is what I'm talking about here. The Ruby Throne and Stormbringer. They're just a nice introduction to the character. They are an origin story. This is not technically the first ELRIC story, but it is a great place to start off. It introduces you to his past and kind of the general idea of the character. So I would say that. I don't need that. Hey, I did there we go. Alright, let's go with why is my stamina fucked? Enchanting. What do I want to do? Do I want to do alchemy here? Yes, I do.
This is anytime.
I get to help Mother with the shop. I used to help Papa too.
You
so
will
I tried
die
to use the
alone.
forge.
Alright, Necroner asks, as a person that likes the Discworld novels and the Caiaphas Cain Warhammer 40k novels, would ELRIC be a good choice as another series to start?
Warhammer took a ton from ELRIC. Actually, so bad, in fact, that Michael Moorcock has, I think he sued them a few times and won. Warhammer, look, you have to understand how Warhammer came to be. They started out just making miniatures for other games that existed, and ELRIC happened to be one of the tabletop RPGs that was very popular at that time. So they wound up, like, they were selling all these miniatures, but people gradually were like, okay, so what's the story behind these miniatures? And so they just had to come up with an idea for it. So they wound up stealing the shit out of a lot of stories, and ELRIC was one of the big ones that they stole from. So yeah, if you're into Warhammer, chances are you're gonna notice a lot of things that are, you know, the idea of there being a chaos army, especially in Warhammer Fantasy, the idea of there being an army of chaos, The idea of law versus chaos. I think there's even kind of a Stormbringer thing in there. I'd have to look into it some more. But yeah, they stole a lot of shit.
I'm sure it's not stolen. I'm sure it's just a homage.
Homage. It's a homage.
Kestrel Merriweather asks, Razor, how would you personally like to depict ELRIC setting? In the French dark fantasy style, or the P. Craig Russell Nouveau style?
Here's what I would do. I would have kind of a mix of both. I would have loading screens done in sort of that interesting stained glass window kind of P. Craig Russell style. Sort of tell the story in that highly stylized kind of way. Then the game itself would be a little more dark fantasy realistic in the style of the Stormbringer and the Ruby Throne graphic novels. I think that'd be pretty cool. Maybe have little animated cutscenes that are in the style of that stained glass window, like The Witcher, but not shit. Let's go to Morthal, right.
I've been looking for you. Got something I'm supposed to deliver. Your hands only.
You just met Elric.
Let's
You're already
see.
dead.
There's a new museum opening up in Dawnstar. The owner is asking me to hand out invitations to travelers. Looks like that's it.
When I
Got
do
to go.
things ever, I think the poor man soiled his armor.
Joshua Mattingly asks, what are the politics of the Elric verse like? Feudal lords, barbarian warlords, kings, queens?
The Young Kingdoms themselves have a lot of different politics. So what's really happening in the world of Elric is that Melniboné has waned in relevance. They used to be this massive empire. It's called the Bright Empire. And they brought every nation of the Young Kingdoms to heel. But ever since they kind of stopped going out into the world for conquest, because, again, they're called the Dreaming City for a reason. They're so preoccupied with laying on the dream couches and divination and making pacts with demons, they barely exist in the real world anymore. So the idea is, with that power vacuum, as Melniboné wanes, the Young Kingdoms are making inroads against each other. They're beginning to kind of fight each other and so forth. Cannibalize
Welcome to
each
the
other.
Moorside. If you need anything, I'll... Rogar's house?
And
It
so
burned
the
down not
idea
too long
would be
ago.
like
It's
the
a real
big one
pity
that's
about his
kind of
wife and
taking
kid.
Melniboné's
The
place
screams woke half the
is
town.
called Pentang.
Most folk won't
And
come
they're
here now
sort of
for fear it's
humans
cursed.
that want to replicate the society of Melniboné. They're making pacts with the Chaos Gods. They're trying to sort of they're the big one that's trying to fill the power vacuum. And eventually in the stories of Elric, they make such a pact with Chaos, but they're not powerful enough to harness it the way the Melnibonéans were, and so they wind up being taken over by Chaos. And that creates sort of the what winds up being the final conflict in the Elric stories, so that Chaos basically becomes manifest in the real world and takes over the armies of Pentang, who eventually are just sweeping across the globe, wiping out one civilization after another and bringing everyone to heel. Which, speaking of which, even if you guys read the Elric stories and you find like one book here or there to be slow or whatever, my advice to you, hang in there until you get to Stormbringer. No matter what you do, read Stormbringer. I'm not talking about the graphic novel, by the way. I'm talking about the actual novel. Stormbringer is one of the greatest fantasy novels ever written. It's one of the best conclusions to a fantasy series I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely mind-blowing. You are robbing yourself of a really cool experience if you don't read it. A very original novel. So yeah, the politics are primarily Melniboné is on the wane, Pentang is trying to fill the gap, and all the other Young Kingdoms are trying to stop Pentang from wiping out the other nations.
Bronson asks, are there any other dark fantasy sword and sorcery novels
Don't
you
fret
recommend?
over the gloom. There's nothing to fear. Oh Lord.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of a nebulous genre, so what qualifies as dark fantasy, I suppose, is in the eye of the beholder. I really like the Wayfarer Redemption series by Sarah Douglas. May she rest in peace. That's kind of a dark fantasy epic. It's a little more, there's There's a little more melodrama in that, though. But it's still pretty good. Still pretty damn good. So that's what I would recommend. They have really cool Luis Royo covers, too. And I don't even have the graphics all the way up, and this game looks pretty good.
My father wanted me to follow in his footsteps as a hunter, but I set my aspirations a bit higher.
But yeah, the political side would be pretty interesting to explore, especially because Elric is technically the last emperor of Melniboné. After Weird of the White Wolf, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But Weird of the White Wolf, something really big happens, and after that, Elric is a massively notorious and world-famous figure. So it would be interesting to kind of play as that character. If you set the game after the events of the Weird of the White Wolf, it'd be really interesting to kind of basically move throughout the world as Elric, because different nations are going to regard you differently. Pantang kind of idolize Elric after that, and yet they're all afraid of him, too. So... let's see if there was maybe like a bounty or something that I can do actually back in town. That'd be another cool thing, because Elric is not just a sorcerer or whatever, he later becomes a mercenary. For most of the stories, as I said in my Elric video, he's more of a mercenary. He's a sword for hire. And yet he's got a little bit of a moral code. So he's in this awkward position. So you would be open to contracts and stuff. I know there's a rather prominent fantasy video game series that already kind of stole this idea, but, you know. You would definitely be open to various contracts because you have a little bit of sorcery and you have a reputation as at least an elemental summoning sorcerer with a specialization in the supernatural. You would, you know, probably be called upon to vanquish various spirits or whatever. Again, stop me if you've heard this one before.
So, life has brought you to Mortha, that which is unknown. Some fear our new resident wizard, as they grow to know him. Time will prove me right. All right then.
You will not disrespect Jarl Idgrod while in this hall. Do. It's no secret that Jarl Idgrod is different. It's also no secret that there are rumors about her and her visions. Now you go about your business.
Licking the colorful toads again, has she?
Tamriel is full of wisdom and magic, if one is willing to look for it. Few have their eyes open.
Oh, that's right. You get the bounties from the innkeepers. I forgot. You don't get them from the Jarl.
I do what I can to see that Idgrod's time isn't wasted. That she only has to deal with important...
I don't know why that is, by the way. That makes no fucking sense.
Finally, someone comes in. Kick off your boots. Stay a while. Let me know if there's anything I can help. There ain't much to offer, but if you want a place dry to spend the night, I'll rent you a room.
There we go.
Here, take a look at this. Some of the Jarl's men
There
came
we
by and
go.
left this
Now we
bounty.
got a fucking... What? There's a dragon? That's a hell of a bounty. I better get paid well for this. Another cool thing about playing in the world of Elric, although I would argue you shouldn't be able to do it all the time because dragons in Melniboné and in the world of Elric work a little differently than in other fantasy worlds. After you use a dragon, after they're ridden into battle, they have to slumber for like 10 years. Like, they have to sleep forever to replenish their dragon venom. They also work a little differently. Instead of breathing fire, they spit venom. And the venom is a supernatural fire that can never be extinguished. As you're reading the Elric stories, people are getting burned alive by the dragon venom. They're catching on fire, and as they fall into the ocean, they're still burning. They're burning underwater, which is brilliant. And I'm reading, like I said, I'm reading Revenge of the Rose, and in that, one of the mutagens that Elric takes is actually dragon venom. He drinks dragon venom, which is horrible and parasitic and makes him feel like shit, but allows him to sort of stay up for days at a time and not sleep and, you know, whatever.
Is Elric's dreaming city similar to the Black Lotus story from Conan?
I haven't read the Black Lotus, so I couldn't really say. It's a story where the dreaming city is really where, if there's an initial arc, and the initial arc is Elric versus Irkun, and Irkun trying to have the throne and constantly kidnapping Cimmeril and all that, the Dreaming City brings that arc to a definitive end. It's the conclusion of that trilogy. And then then you go on into Elric the Mercenary in the world, going out and just kicking the shit out of people. Pardon me. Kill the dragon. Alright, so where's the dragon at? Where's the dragon? Dragon. Did it not put the fucking marker on my map? Did it not? What's this? Go away. Okay, can we... Is it way over here? No.
Are you a fan of Mastodon? Do you think they would fit the musical score for...
No, I think if you were gonna go metal, like full-blown metal for a soundtrack, you should go outright power metal. You know, you should go Blind Guardian or Demons and Wizards or something like that. Like, really do it up.
Yeah, real fantasy metal. I like that.
Like, maybe even do a full instrumental soundtrack by Yngwie Malmsteen.
Ooh.
How fucking amazing would that be? Because, I mean, all his music is about fucking dragons and wizards and, you know, badass shit like that. And he's got the neoclassical
You're different,
kind of...
aren't you? Not like anyone else. Not in Morthal or Skyrim.
Let's see here. Where's that dragon barrow? I'm gonna go up there. Oh, there she is. I was wondering if she was still following my ass. Let's go up and kill a dragon, shall we? And yes, you can one-hit a dragon with this Stormbringer sword. It is a beast. Which is how it should be. Stormbringer should be easy mode if you're making an Elric game. But it should also be an easy mode that comes with a cost. In that, as you get later in the game, you just get weaker and weaker and weaker. Oops. Let's see here. Hold on a second. There we go. Sorry, I'm reading your comments here. What are the stats on Stormbringer? Let me see here. Yeah, Stormbringer does make Elric stronger, but there's a parasitic relationship with it, so it actually kind of makes you weaker at the same time. The more you use Stormbringer, the more you need it. It is a clear look. Micah Moorcock has defined Stormbringer as being a bit of an allegory for heroin. You have to remember these stories were written in the 60s and the 70s, and he had a lot of friends. He was involved in kind of the hippie counterculture movement, so he saw a lot of friends who were experimenting with drugs and, you know, fell by the wayside with heroin and so forth. So, yeah, Stormbringer transfers life force it stole to Elric. Dan L., you're absolutely correct. Sabaton would be badass for the soundtrack. There would have to be, Opie Brothers, would there be options for romance in an Elric game? Yes, there would have to be. We mentioned that a little earlier, but there would absolutely have to be romance options. So you would have to have female characters in the game. I don't know if you would have Cimmeril. It would depend on when you set the game. But you would definitely have Michella, as I mentioned earlier. I think you should have Shirilla, who's a member of the Mirn race. They're a winged race, but she's unique in that she was born without wings. So it'd be kind of cool to have maybe a side quest where you run into Shirilla in like a tavern, which is how you're introduced to her in the books. And she basically propositions Elric, hey, I heard about I think it's called the Dead Gods book. And apparently you can do pretty much anything with it. And you'll have some kind of boon granted to you. And basically she eventually admits that she wants it to figure out a way that she can grow her wings back, or so that she can stop being deformed, so that she's not an outcast from her people. She wants to use the Dead Gods book to actually grow wings. So Elric and her go on this journey, and without spoiling anything, it's really cool the way it is dealt with at the end when they actually find the Dead Gods book. But that would be a perfect way, like right at the end of that story, you're kind of presented with a choice of, okay, is she gonna stay with you or not? And then you could have a party member. So I think she'd be cool, so there'd probably be a romance option there. And then there's any number of other characters. Zerozinia comes in later, and she's no wilting violet. I would love the Rose from Revenge of the Rose. She's kind of a female warrior, a little bit different from a lot of the female Elric characters. Here's my anti-gravity horse.
Fuck physics.
Anti-gravity! Fuck.
That almost sounded like Godzilla.
Gogeta. Okay, so I need to find the prefabbed path. Thanks, Skyrim. This is the side effect of making game design decisions for aesthetics and nothing more. Yeah, your steep mountains look cool and all, but did I just kill him in one hit? Did he just die? Woo! And then sucking out the dragon souls. But yeah, you should be able to ride a dragon in Elric, but probably not a lot. You know, dragons in Elric, like I said, they have to slumber for fucking decades after you use them once. Oh, she's running after the frost troll. Get him! Yeah! Man, she is nothing to be fucked with. Look at that beautiful sword. Look at that. That is fucking glorious.
My mother was a strong woman. She's the one who instructed me on my sword fighting techniques.
Well, let's get up to the top of that mountain, because usually dragons have fucking treasure. How do I... Where's the path? How do I get up here? I don't need the dragon bone or the dragon scales or anything, but I assume this is the path. But yeah, dragon riding would be absolutely be part of it. Just picture Skyrim, but with fucking dragon riding. and you get an idea of what I'm going for.
You sort of already covered this, but to get into specifics, how would you integrate Elric's weaknesses into the game? Asks JS.
I think you would have to have... Like I said, you would have to have an additional meter. Like how this game has health, stamina, and magic. I would argue there should be kind of a vitality meter, or like a wellness meter or something, where it's gradually going down. And once you wield Stormbringer, as long as Stormbringer is sated, as long as it is it's sapped out enough souls recently, then the mere act of putting your hand around the hilt of Stormbringer should really fill your body with vitality again. But the problem is, once you sheath Stormbringer, that vitality is going to go away. So alchemy, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be a huge part of any Elric game, because you're going to need to know how to make the potions that sustain Elric on a more long-term basis. It'd also be kind of cool if maybe having a sorcerer character in your party like Michela, or if Cimmeril was in the game, because Cimmeril, that's really what her primary function is to a large degree. They kind of have a codependent relationship because she's a sorceress and she knows how to sustain him. She knows how to make those... Oh, cool. She knows how to make those potions. What's all this then? Weapon disarm. Interesting. So I think that would have to be a part of it. You would really need that alchemy element, and then if maybe you had a party member with you who could help you like that, you know, like maybe you could have a command where they give you a potion or they do some kind of spell, because spells also are keeping him vital. But yeah, his thin blood is going to be a constant concern in the game, which just adds another layer of depth. Just shouts. Disarm. Unlock. Okay. Where's the treasure? I know there's got to be treasure here somewhere. I gots to know.
Woo! Wanted me to follow in his footsteps.
Yes. Orcish battle axe. Adept robes of destruction. Me Reiki.
But I set my aspirations a bit higher. He never complained. I miss him.
Yeah, how long have we been going?
Let's see, we have been streaming for 1 hour and 45 minutes.
Okay, so pretty soon here we'll wrap it up. So keep brainstorming, guys. And,
you know, someone brings up, Mercenary X21 brings up, if you're gonna have like an open world-esque game, would you bring base building to it? And I have to say, probably not.
Yeah,
just because everything is already established, and it's like Elric would be traveling around a lot. So it's like, I don't really see that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, he does command an army on occasion, but he never does particularly well, and he never really establishes like a settlement or anything. So there was another mechanic I wanted to mention that I haven't talked about yet. Stormbringer is treacherous. Very treacherous.
It wants to kill him, doesn't it?
It not only wants to kill Elric, it loves souls, but it loves the souls of his friends. His allies, it wants to kill them, and it does. It kills them constantly. He'll be in the middle of battle, and if he's back-to-back with a friend, Stormbringer will just whirl around and stab him right through the heart and kill him. That happens several times over the course of the Elric series, and so I would argue the less... I think you would have to have, with the alignment system, you would have to have some kind of way to track how in sync Stormbringer and Elric are. The more they are in conflict, because Stormbringer is sentient. If you're doing things that Stormbringer wants, maybe you don't have any issues. But if you're not...
You're looking a little rough around the...
Ooh.
Take a look.
If you're not doing what Stormbringer wants, I would say it begins to get a little treacherous. Maybe it stops working as well at first, and then eventually maybe you're in battle and it literally kills one of your allies. And they're gone. They're gone from that point on. If you're not careful with how in sync you are with Stormbringer, you might even have like a full cutscene with like a death sequence where this ally that you've been with the entire game, all of a sudden Stormbringer's just whirled about and just stabbed them right through the heart. They're just dead. You know, and you get this whole fucking maudlin cinematic where Elric's just like, what the fuck? How the fuck? Like, what do I have to do here? I think that'd be really cool and a really unique spin on, you know, having companions in the game. That's why I say you need a companion system. It can't just be an open world RPG where it's just Elric and he's just wandering around doing Skyrim shit. It's gotta be, you gotta have your allies and they have to be threatened actively by Stormbringer if you don't do what Stormbringer wants. Once in a while. You either have to do what Stormbringer wants, or you have to find a way to placate Stormbringer. You know, kill an animal every now and then so that, you know, Stormbringer can stay sated. But if Stormbringer's starving, if it hasn't had souls in a while, if you've just been using your normal weapons for quite some time, maybe it just whirls around and chops Moonglum's head off out of nowhere. You know, I think that'd be an interesting mechanic, and it would also allow for emergent gameplay. I mean, can you imagine people talking on forums about, what the fuck, I was in the middle of a fight against a dragon and Stormbringer just whirls around and chops my friend's arms off. Shit. Those are the kind of things that make RPGs successful, by the way, you know, having word of mouth like that spread.
People say Skyrim is one of the most dangerous places in
Look at that badass right there. Look at that dude.
It's magnificent.
It's cool too because the elves in this game have eyes just like Melnibonéans. Melnibonéans are described as having kind of slanted eyes. The high elves in Elder Scrolls, I think, are kind of patterned after that. They have kind of slightly off-center slanted eyeballs.
Actually, I would say he kind of looks like, weren't the Snow Elves a now deceased race in this game?
The Snow Elves are a little Melnibonéan, just a little bit. But yeah. Melnibonéans themselves, they are fair people, but they're not albino. He's unique even among Melnibonéans. Most of them are not that pale. They actually tend to have dark hair and eyes and stuff. Oh, fuck. Oh! Right to the thorax, you fucker.
What is your opinion of Godflesh? Screams Andreas Ariano.
I never really heard, don't really care. No offense. But yeah, I think for the soundtrack, you'd have to go kind of a little bit electronic, but with the symphonic and the... You'd need some rock for just the main themes, some metal, you know, and I'd go with like a Blind Guardian or a Yngwie Malmsteen. I think those would be your ideal contenders for something like that.
I have nothing to say to you. Now move along.
Fuck you!
And the horse you rode in on.
And the horse he rode in on. Whoops. The horse is running away. I love this sword. Are you seeing this, folks? Working as intended. The dagger of Damocles.
See that dagger? You can go there.
You can climb it.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. How do I have a bounty for Whiterun? Who ran back to Whiterun and told
The
them?
horse. The horse. Remember, the chickens in this game can report you.
This is true. Snitching ass chickens. Snitches get stitches.
And chickens are snitches, apparently.
Fuck you. Horse meat burgers, here I come.
Why is this horse tougher than a cave bear?
That's right, I have the mod for the better horses. Horses can't be killed. That's my own fault. Because one of the most annoying things in this game is when a dragon just comes along and the horse tries to go 12 rounds with a friggin' dragon and winds up getting killed. So I got a mod that basically makes them invincible. Alright, folks, I think we should wrap this up. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I thought it was pretty cool. Scariest element of an ELRIC game. Let's talk about that, actually. There's a pretty cool story in Bane of the Black Sword, I want to say. about the king under the mountain, where there's this undead army that lives under like a barrow and stuff. There are clearly undead elements here. And of course, the constant demon conjuring. I would argue you should maybe be able to surf the demon realms. Way to go.
Don't put a giant fucking flashlight next to my coffee.
Don't get the coffee jitters.
Shut up.
But yeah. Show off the ELRIC magic before you... Oh, it's just standard Skyrim magic.
Yes, no custom spells, unfortunately.
No, sir. But yeah, Godspeed to you folks. Thank you for showing up. This is pretty fucking badass. I hope you guys got some ideas and saw that there's actually some commercial potential in the idea of an ELRIC game. Just a few brainstormed ideas. I never wanted to make games personally. I was never, you know, hey, I want to go to game design school, because once you see how the sausages are made, you realize it's kind of fucking boring and a little bit gross. So...
So, you know, pre-order now, and pre-order at GameStop and get your Ruby Throne DLC.
Ooh, that's a good idea, actually.
No, it's not.
No, someone said, also, did you see that bit where I suggested that Stormbringer eats your XP if you use him and is just a normal sword when sated, which can fuck you at end game? I like that. I like that idea a lot, actually. Everyone, God fucking speed, thank you.
And
for joining us, and blood and souls for Lord Ariach!